Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Just Believe Show. I'm your host, Herbie Mack. Today, I'm honored to actually have this conversation. I got marked on the calendar. I've been dying to learn more and more about Craig. Craig is not only like someone I met through a mutual friend named Craig, which, but I heard parts of his story. And when I heard his story, I was just like, wow, I need to hear more. I have so many questions. And with that being said, I want to introduce you guys to Craig Daigle. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, Herbie. It's a pleasure. And likewise, I'm so grateful for our connection, man. And I say this humbly. There are so many layers to this story that we're just going to start peeling back this onion until one of us starts crying, probably me, but it's all good. I share unapologetically, authentically honest, raw, and unfiltered. And I dubbed myself the Unfiltered Life Coach over the years just because of my brutal honesty and my will to want to be the person that I needed at the time, that I needed most. I needed somebody to not enable me, not to massage my ego. I needed to know the truth. No matter how hard it hurt, I needed that tough love because it's still love, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's the thing that really led to me getting into this, right? People are like, oh man, you're sharing your story. I'm like, because I needed that person that was going through it that can just be that light of
Yeah.
hope, that beacon of hope of man. Yes, it sucks right now, but guess what? I survived this very similar to you. Here I am in the flesh. And with that, as we talk behind the scenes all the time, it led to me speaking, it led to me doing support groups and so on. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm like, I do that not just because, oh, it's the thing to do. I want to be a speaker, I want to be a coach. Because I know there's someone out there that needs to hear that story, just that hope. And that's
Yeah.
all I want to do is just change that one person life or connect with that one person to just give them that opportunity to say, okay, if he can go through this and he's all right, I can go through this and do the same.
And that's the most important part of this. And the biggest thing that people need to understand that interact with individuals like you and I is everything's temporary, even the good. It's all temporary. And the hardest part, I think, is when we're in the middle of that storm, Herbie, it's so hard to see through that fog and through the things to realize that we've survived all of our worst days up until today. And as long as we're putting in the actions necessary, we're going to survive today too, as long as we're not just giving up on ourselves. It's what I always tell people. I'm like, just don't give up. Sometimes just getting out of bed is the hardest thing of some people's day, man. I've been in that depression before. I let anxiety rock me for years, man, especially the years when I was extremely overweight. And I would lock myself in a bedroom for 3 days. I didn't turn to alcohol. I didn't turn to drugs at that time, but I might as well have. Like, I just shut life off. And the times when I was shutting life off, like, I was a single parent. My kids were directly affected by me shutting down for 3 days. And that was what really started me fighting through some of the fog. Was I was like, okay, people indirectly in my life are affected by how I show up. People that need me the most are affected by how I'm showing up for me, not just for them, because I would get out of bed, I would cook for them, I would do all those things, and then it was right back to bed. But it was like, you know what? What kind of a father was that?
Well,
I need to
hold on.
show them how to fight.
Before we even talk about that, let's talk about what led to you being depressed.
So for most of my life, I was athletic. I was somebody that enjoyed sports. I played basketball all the time. I'd go play pickup games. And then basically started having kids and going through one bad relationship after another. And it was like a little piece of each relationship hung on. 2006, I had my oldest son. His mother and I, we were living together. I got a call from a buddy telling me, man, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm at home with my kid. My girl's at work. She's working tonight. And he's, man, that's why I'm calling you, bro. I swear on my children's life that your girl is down here at the bar with some dudes. And I was like, man. And I'll never forget, my son was like not even 6 months old at the time, asleep in his crib. It's 10 o'clock at night. I called one of my boys. I'm like, yo, you need to come by the crib real quick. I don't need you to do anything. The baby's asleep. I just need somebody here. If he wakes up, there's a bottle. I got him all set up. I said, "And I need your car and no questions asked." And I rolled down to the bar. I walked in and it's the, I'm the crazy one because I showed up there and I'm the jerk and I'm the everything. And after we had separated, we went back and forth through court. A few months after court, I ended up with full custody. So I have full custody of our son who was just about to turn a year old. She's seen him every other weekend, but I was with him. It was me that was there all the time. I was the constant. That stress just kind of built up. And then I started putting weight on from the stress. I was just stress eating. I drank a lot back then. Alcohol was my crutch. I was probably a functioning alcoholic at that point. I would get out of work, and the minute I got out of work, it was pick my kid up, get home, start making dinner, start drinking beer. And I would do that until it was time to go to bed, wake up and do it all over again. It was like this roller coaster. Then a couple of years went by as a single dad, and I met a woman who had 2 daughters. We started dating. Her oldest daughter was born with a genetic disorder, and while we were dating, passed away. She wasn't supposed to, she wasn't supposed to, by doctor's accord, survive at all. She made it to about 7 years old, and we were together. Her youngest daughter was a year older than my son. We had a little blended family, and we were together. Things were good, but there were times where it was rocky. And a lot of that, I can't imagine how I would turn out uh, if I lost one of my children. And I always felt like I had no right to tell somebody how to cope with that grief. And over the years of us being together, we were married, we had a child together, my middle child, and I enabled drug abuse. I enabled alcoholism. I enabled the coping mechanisms to transcend into using both at the same time to the point where there were a lot of domestic situations. And when I say domestic situations, I'm talking everything from emotional to verbal to physical abuse on multiple different times. Some were captured and recorded by police records, some were not. Generally speaking, whenever there was an altercation where there was law enforcement involved, I was typically the focal point, even though I was on the receiving end. By no means am I innocent. I entertained getting into these battles. I would defend myself. I never hit a woman, but I would definitely hold her or push her down to get her away from me. Things like that. Like it wasn't like I was throwing fists with her or anything like that, but I would engage in it more than anybody should have to protect myself. That went on for years, man. It went on for years until there were times where I went to bed, man, and I didn't know what was going to happen between Ambien and alcohol and her not remembering the things that she did. There were times I was woken up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason with a bucket of water dropped on me in the middle of the night on my bed. She sliced our furniture. She did. There was a lot of crazy things that happened.
Well,
And our
hold on.
final,
I
yeah,
get oh man, there's I don't want to cut you off. There's
you're
so
good.
many there's so many questions that I would like to follow up on
Yeah.
because obviously here you are with your 6 month child and you're like, man, I'm trying to figure out this fatherhood thing. I'm doing right. And you receive a phone call from a buddy that's, hey, she's here at the bar. I can imagine any person, doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, you are livid when you walk through the bar and you see her. What was the what was your core reaction of this can't be real? What was your reaction and when you saw her sitting there with someone else? Like I can imagine for me, like I'm probably at a 12, but then you have to have that balance of I can't react a certain way because I'm still a dad. I still have responsibilities at
Yeah.
home. So I just want to I'm just curious on what was that reaction?
It's so crazy that you say that because I've often reflected on that moment so many times because had I not had my son, my younger years, it would have been a completely different, it would have been, I would have walked in and I would have just dropped anybody that was there. I literally would have fought everybody in the room. And that's just how my pride and ego was back then as a young man. I definitely wasn't always on the up and up at those times. In my early 20s, I was a rough around the edges wild man, plenty of fights in groups and bars and all those things. But it's funny, man, when I walked in, I just stood there. I was pissed, but I just stood there and waited for everybody to see me because nobody knew, no one expected me to be there. And the people that were there, because I was pretty well known in my area, especially on the bar scene in the towns where we all went. It's a pretty, it's not a small community. Our cities, people knew me. So when I walked in, the people that were with her knew who I was. And people were pointing out, they're like, oh shit, Craig's here. And they're like, there was a scramble. Some of them left out the back, some of them left out the side. And then she was calling me crazy for being there. I think that if I don't know that I would have been able to control myself if one of them confronted me or said something stupid, but nobody did. And I know that God was looking out for me that night because, like you said, I had so much to lose at that point. Because looking back, had I actually thrown hands in that bar, I would have had assault charges and all kinds of other things. I had a false domestic violence charge put on me at that point back in the day from her when we first separated because she just did whatever she could to make my life miserable. But had I thrown hands, how much would that have affected that charge? How much would that have affected that other filing? I wouldn't be where I am. I literally know that I wouldn't be where I am. And I honestly don't know what it was, Herbie, other than something or someone was looking out for me that night and decided you're going to walk in, you're going to make your presence known, and then you're going to go home and you're going to be responsible. And that's all I did. I went home and I was responsible. I went back home to my kid. I made sure everybody knew that I knew what was going on. And we split up right after that. Basically, I kicked her out of my place. We were living together. She took my son. I didn't see him for a couple of weeks until the court hearing started. And then I was basically given my rights as a parent at that point. But yeah, man, I don't know.
I'm
I don't know what I
glad.
would have done.
I'm just glad that whomever was watching over you, that you listen, because sometimes we get that
Yeah.
temptation to just be like, "Yeah, I hear you, but I'm not listening. I'm going to react and do that." So that's a blessing in a sense. And then I can
Yeah.
imagine you being heartbroken as any person would. Man, this is the mother of my child. How can she do this to not only me, but to this family that I thought we were starting? And for you to figure out parenting on your own for a little bit, which is a struggle. There's no right way to parent. Then you find
Yeah.
someone that you're like, oh, okay, I like this woman. She has kids,
Mhm.
perfectly fine, whatever. We're gonna make this work. And unfortunately, she lost her daughter. And that is, as a parent, we're not supposed to bury our. It's like the unwritten
Can't
rule. We're not supposed to bury
can't
our
imagine.
kids. Yeah, your kid's supposed to bury you, and you can't. There's no right way to grieve. And
Nope.
and and depending on where you grew up at, you don't think about seeing a therapist, a counselor, or anyone like that to talk about grief. It's just, oh, I'm just gonna self-medicate. I'm gonna go get this bottle, I'm gonna get this blunt, I'm gonna do whatever I can do to numb my pain. And it's very challenging when you care for someone and you're like, I know this is not the proper way, but I don't know how to say that without offending them, without them
Yep.
going from a 0 to 100, because it's, "Man, I care for you, I know you need help. I'm not saying something's wrong with you, but I'm saying is you need assistance." And that is a difficult conversation to have with anyone, right? So,
100%.
you're here like, "Oh, hey, let me guide you. Okay, I'm gonna close a blind eye. I see you, but I'm turning my head, but I'm still looking to make sure you're not doing anything crazy," and that could probably just spark another fight. And what you were saying was like that
Mhm.
led to altercations between you guys. You're the first guy that I told you that I've seen publicly talk about domestic violence from the other side. of, man, I was being abused, not only physically, but emotionally. But it's not because
Yeah.
he was just this angry type of person. Clearly, there's a cause and effect, and I know what it is because I was
Yep.
dealing with her. And it's like, how can I say enough is enough for not only me, but enough is enough for you? And like, hey, I understand you're hurting, but we got to do something else to heal this hurt. You know what I mean? So I d- kudos for you for sticking around for that. I know there's a lot of people, it doesn't matter what gender you are or however you identify yourself, that's not going to put up with that. Of just as soon as the
Right.
first time they see like something, okay, I'm out. And for you, I can imagine that it's like, but I clearly I love you. We got a kid together, but I don't
Yeah.
know what to do. And kudos for you to be brave enough to say enough is enough. So during this relationship, can you talk about that turning point of when you was like, man, I have to walk away just for my benefit?
Yeah. It was basically like reaching a rock bottom. And I don't know that I would have done it if it didn't turn out as bad as it did. And it's almost like the good times were used as an excuse for me to be like, it's not that bad all the time. It's just sometimes. It's just when this holiday pops up or this Memorial Day, a birthday, or the death date, or something reminded her today about her daughter. And it's just like you said, there were so many times where it was like, I did have those conversations. And a lot of times those conversations turned extremely violent. And it was like, which hill is the hill I want to die on today? Do I say nothing today and just monitor and make sure that the kids are good, go about my business so that I can go to work and keep our bills afloat and do all those things? Or is today the day that I put my foot down and I say something? And I feel like I threatened to put my foot down, and I say threatened because it never really happened. I threatened it a lot. Like I'd be like, no, I'm done. I'm done with this. I've had enough of this. I can't do this anymore. Like something has to change. And then there would be like this period of time where there was sobriety or clarity, or we worked together on it. And then all of a sudden it was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde all over again. And it's again, seriously? Like, how long are we going to do this for? That answer was 8 years. That answer was 8 years is how long we were going to do that for. Our final domestic was August 11th of 2015. I remember the day. I'll never forget the day. I'll never forget what happened. We were living in a small apartment in New Hampshire on the border of Massachusetts. And I had gotten her a job at the hospital that I worked at. She was a licensed respiratory therapist at one point in her career. She had a very illustrious career in the hospital. She was very educated. She threw it all away. She basically lost her respiratory license. She got fired from that job. But I had gotten her another job in a hospital. It was in housekeeping to get her foot back in the door, for her to work her way back up to get her license, her respiratory license, and to get back on track. And it was her first day at work, her first day on the job. And she was there for, I don't know, a couple hours. And we were meeting. She dropped the kids off to me on first shift. She went to work second shift. I went home. I got home. I was home for 2 hours. And all of a sudden she's walking through the door. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, wow, what are you doing home already?
Exactly.
And she was hammered, bro, hammered. And I'm talking, it was a matter of 2 hours. It was literally a matter of 2 hours that we were. So in my mind, she either had to have been drinking when she went to work and already had, she probably was day drinking all day or whatever, whatnot. Um, when she came through the door, it was like, I snapped. I lost it. I said, that's enough. I'm done. I'm completely done. I got you a job. This is where I was working. This was what was feeding our children. I don't know what happened. I don't know how she left. I don't know what went on. And it just escalated from there. And I remember holding our son that we have together. He was like 3 at the time. And I was holding him. And she picked up one of those stand oscillating fans, the big ones. And she was literally swinging it and hitting me with it while I held the baby. And I remember putting him off into one of the bedrooms with his biological sister on his mother's side and my oldest son who was living with me. And I told the older kids, I said, lock the door, stay in here and don't come out until I come and get you. Don't, I don't care who else comes to the door. Don't open the door until I come and get you. And she just continued to attack me, but we was in an apartment complex. So I didn't have to call the cops at that point. Our other domestics, we had owned a house at the time, which we ended up losing because she spent all of our money on prescription drugs and alcohol. And so now we're in an apartment and the cops are called. The cops show up immediately. She's left now and she's met them outside with her story. I'm inside with the children, making sure that they're all right. The minute the cops come in, and I'll never forget, it was a male cop and a female cop, and the male cop was talking down to me the minute he hit the door. I didn't say a word. I knew better. So I just stayed quiet because I know anything that I say at this point can't be turned around, right? So I just sat there and I let him berate me, calling me a piece of shit, telling me that I put hands on her and this and that, which never happened. And I remember I'm sitting at the kitchen table and he's going on and on. And he said, is there anybody else here? And I said, yeah, our children are here. He said, they're in the bedroom. I said, I was protecting them. And I got them set up in the bedroom. And man, I don't know what goes through a cop's mind at that point. And I understand, but you gotta be open and objective. You can't just assume and jump into the thing because you don't know, because guys are on the other end too. They ended up talking to our children, and thank God that our children they were honest. They said,
At
my
that
daddy
age, they
didn't
don't
do
lie.
nothing.
Yeah, at that age, they
No,
don't lie. They tell you the
no.
truth.
He said, my daddy didn't do nothing. All of them gave the same story. And even the 3-year-old was saying the same thing. And then it started to turn. And I remember the female cop looking at me and saying, I understand. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm like, do what you guys got to do. Do what you guys got to do. My life is already living hell. I don't give a shit what they did at that point. I really didn't care. I didn't care if they arrested me or whatever they did because I was just done, bro. Like I was done. That domestic started at 5 or 6 p.m. at night on a Tuesday night. I don't remember what weekday it was. I just know it was August 11th. It went on and on. She kept leaving and coming back and being told to leave by the cops. But then they were telling her that her name's on the lease, so she has the right to be there if she wants to be there. It wasn't until 3 a.m. 3 a.m. I hadn't slept. She had been in and out of the apartment a few times, even after the domestic. The cops let her back in. I had her on a recorded line while I'm talking to the dispatcher again. And I'm like, yo, I don't know what you people are waiting for. If you're waiting for something bad to happen to one of our children or myself, but you can hear her. She was in the background screaming, saying, don't worry, tomorrow I'm going to file a report on you. I'm going to claim all kinds of shit. They're going to take all the kids away. Basically, I had her recorded saying what she was going to do. And they came out again. And the cops said, hey, look, we've been out here 5 or 6 times now. The only thing that we can do is we can wake a judge up and get a restraining order, but we don't want to do that. And I said, I don't give a fuck what you want to do or what you think you want to do. And I don't say that lightly. Like I told them, I said, I've had enough. That's what you're going to do. So they filed an emergency restraining order overnight. The following morning, I had to show up to the courthouse and I had to extend it out, which I did. And then the crazy just got even crazier. It was to the point where she faked her own death. She had somebody call me and claim that she was in a car accident in North Carolina and had somebody pretend to be a nurse from a hospital, claiming that she passed away in a car accident. And I have police reports and filings of because there was a restraining order. So people are calling me on third party. I had to report everything. It was absolutely bananas, dude. And it went on for a while and we finally got divorced. And through that time, I stress ate. I still drank occasionally at that time. Not like I used to drink, but I was still a drinker. And it was like, I finally got divorced towards the end of 2015, but it was, so August, we had our domestic. I was a single parent full time with all of the kids, including my stepdaughter. In November of 2015, she was taken out of our home. She was signed over to the maternal grandparents. Dad of 8 years didn't have any rights because he was a stepdad. And I remember just getting to that breaking point where my weight and my health was so bad that I needed to do something. I had severe sleep apnea, bad acid reflux. I was pushing 500 pounds. My health was so bad, Herbie. High blood pressure. I was borderline diabetic.
Well, let's pause before we talk about the weight because I do want to acknowledge what you said when you was out there and you have these cops, they're asking her all the questions and they're looking at you with the side eye.
Mm.
And it's just because, and I think it's a stigma. When you think of domestic
Oh,
violence,
yeah.
you automatically think of a woman getting attacked. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness, man, what guy would hit this woman or whatever? And to see it on the opposite end, it's probably rare because most guys, if they are in that type of situations, they're not brave enough to call the cops and say, "Hey, yes, I'm a man, and yes, this 4'11" woman was putting her hands on me, and I allow it." And you could be 6'1", and it's because as males, we know we're physically stronger than them, and
Hmm.
we can do some damage. So it's being raised like, "Hey, don't hit a woman." So you try your best not to, and for them to have judgment. I I hate to say it's common, but it is, and this is why having
So
these
common.
conversation this is why it's so important to have these conversations out loud to break down that stigma and be like, "Yeah, like, I allow my woman, doesn't matter how tall she is, how much she weighs or whatever, this was the situation, and I'm self-aware of how strong I am." But also,
Yeah.
when you are a father, kids they watch everything that you do.
Hmm.
Everything. You can say, "Hey, don't touch the stove." Guess what? I see daddy touching the stove. I'm gonna touch the stove. So it's like that 7 the first 7 years of any child's life is the most important years. That's the foundation years. So they're watching and
Hmm.
recording your moves, how you act, and all of that. So if they see daddy hitting mom, they assume that's okay. So this for when they get
Right.
older, they're like, "Man, my dad used to hit my mom all the time. I can hit whatever woman or whatever person I'm dealing with, and it's not
Right.
acceptable." It's obviously keep your hands to yourself unless you have to defend for yourself. And for
Mm.
those cops to just, especially the female one, to sit there and acknowledge, "Okay, I apologize for judging you." That I think that is beautiful, and I want people to
Yeah.
that's listening and watching this to acknowledge even they realize it was a mistake to prejudge you because you were a man and allegedly you're getting attacked and come to find out it's, "Oh, wait, this is not allegedly. This is actually this is true."
Yeah.
And to have the conversations with the kids is I applaud your kids for being brave enough to talk to them and tell them what they
Mm.
saw. And at that young age, they don't really know how to lie. You know what I mean? They
Nah.
really don't. They're learning probably as they get a little bit older, but at that age, especially a 3-year-old, they're gonna call they're gonna call it how they see it. And that was the moment that probably changed not only the cop's perspective of you, but that's probably the moment for you to say, "Wow, my kids saw that. My kid,"
Hmm.
even though you think, "Oh, they're 3-year-olds, they're gonna forget," is you're not gonna forget that moment. You know what I mean?
They they don't forget Herbie. My son's 11 years old now, and we still talk about. He brings it up. We have conversations about that day. He remembers that day. He doesn't remember all the things when he was 3. One thing that he does remember when he was 3, he remembers about that time. And there are those conversations and it makes it difficult. It's crazy too, because so I got divorced officially in 2015. It took me until 2017 to come to this realization. And it took me forever to forgive myself, let alone to forgive. I forgive her like wholeheartedly. I forgive her. And I assume full responsibility for all of it. And it's hard for some people when I say that to understand because they're like, but you didn't do it. Why? What do you mean? I communicated what I was willing to put up with, and I communicated how to respect me, and I communicated what I was willing to endure, and I communicate what my needs are and what my everything that encompasses that whole situation. I communicated it, and I communicated it ineffectively because deep down inside, I didn't want it. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to go through it. And a lot of times I said that I did it just for our kids, but and our kids are so much better off not being in that environment than even the small struggle of the single parenting and the bills and the not knowing whether or not the lights would stay on or what week I was going to be able to feed my kids. Like all that hardship was still better than living under a hostile environment.
You gotta
It
protect your mental
was.
health. You have to protect your mental health and your peace, and that's something that I can't stress. I know well, I don't wanna say I know because I don't wanna seem arrogant, but I assume that once the divorce happened and you left, you probably was just mentally, you probably was like, "Yes, I don't have to deal with that." But then emotionally, you're probably like, "Man, here I am starting all over again." Not only it's not, "Oh, hey, I had one child, which was easy to manage." Now I have
Mhm.
multiple kids, multiple mouths to feed, including your mouth. Now I have to
Yep.
somehow figure out crunch numbers on clothes, eating, things that
It
events,
just Herbie, I made just too much to not be able to get assistance, but just not enough to be able to afford my bills. It was, bro, it was probably one of the hardest times in my life from August till November, being a single parent of three children and juggling. And not just that, like at that time, like my parents, God bless them, they have done so much for me in my entire life. But typically, when there is a single parent situation or something goes on, everybody has their family around. I had emergency people that I could use that I never wanted to call on because that was it. It was emergency purposes only, basically. My immediate family lived in Arizona. They moved there in 2010. 5 years later, I'm the only one out in New England by myself. When one of the kids got sick or one of the kids couldn't make it to school, it was me. It was only me. And even after my stepdaughter went to go live with her grandparents, it was me and my two sons. It was the two of us, the three of us. And it was hard, man. I used to pay my bills and budget every month. And I would look and I would say, okay, I could pay the lights this month, but I got to skip the car till next month. But I got to pay the car next month because if I go another payment, they're going to repossess. So I pay the car. Then it was the phone bill. I can't pay the phone bill in the car in the same month. So I got to pay the phone bill on this month. Keep my phone bill on so that I can paid so that I can have a phone because emergency parent, you need to have a phone. If you're a single parent, you need a phone. And then it was like, how am I going to feed my kids? What am I going to do? I'll never forget, man. I always try to use proper language with my kids. We'll be in the grocery store, like parents will be like, "No, we don't have money for that." I don't like to use that type of language. I would say, "We haven't budgeted for that right now."
Yes,
Or I would
words
say
matter.
that, yeah, because growing up, I remember being poor as a kid. I remember that being always the thing that my parents would have to say to me, "We don't have money for that right now," or "You can't get that right now." And as a kid, you want everything when you walk through
Mhm.
the store. You grabbing shit. And I always tried to use that language. And I'll never forget one time I was checking out and a bill had posted in between me checking my bank account and counting as I filled the cart to make sure I stayed in my budget. And by the time I made it to the register, it got denied. And and me looking at the cashier, I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be right back." I ain't coming back. I don't have no money to pay for it. I had to take that walk of shame, and some poor soul had to go put all that shit back. And I felt terrible about that. More so because my kids had to watch that. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, man, that walk
When
of
this
shame, bro, when the
Hey, I
credit
done took
card
that walk
denied.
so many times with you, bro.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie. Oh, wait, what do you mean? It's a decline? You look at that
That's
account and
crazy.
it's, "Man, hold on, that's a negative. It's not even in the positive no more. We just gotta leave
Yeah.
this here."
Mhm.
I can imagine now at 2016, you're trying to figure things out. You're learning the budget. Now you have not only 1 child, you have multiple, you have 3, including you. That is stressful. and
Yeah. It
that
took
and
2 years to figure out that budget post-divorce
but
till
the
I
key
made
to
it to the point where
not
it
even the
was
budget part though,
manageable. Yeah.
because like the obviously the budget part is key, but then I can imagine mentally you was probably drained from even though you moved on, you got married, you probably was still drained from the first experience with the mother of your child. Now you're probably even more drained because this one you took on, and unfortunately, it took a 180 turn where it was like, "Oh, everything's perfect." Now it's
Yeah.
like it went from "I love you" to "I wanna kill you." You know what I mean? Type of
Mhm.
vibes, and now you have not only just 1 child, you have 2 others, including the one that you started with. So it's like all these emotions, all these pieces of the puzzle of this thing we call life, you're trying to figure out, and it seemed based off of what we were talking about before and early in this episode, that led to you doing what every other person would probably do is stuff their mouth because it's, "Man, I'm hurt, but I don't know how to say I'm hurt. And you know what?
Mhm.
I'm just gonna go. I know I shouldn't do this. I know it's 2 in the morning, but I'm gonna go to Taco Bell's. I'm gonna go to McDonald's. I'm just gonna like do whatever to just fill this hurt with food. And
100%.
and that's something that like I don't like to when people are like, oh, this person's fat, they don't want it. I'm like, man, you never know what they've been. There's a
You
reason
don't know
why.
what their battle is. Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know. You just assume that they're fat, they're lazy, they just want to sit down and watch Netflix. You don't know what they've been through. And for you to just be out there open and honest and say, man, at one point I was 500 pounds.
Mhm. Not just that I was 500 pounds, but I was the exact opposite of lazy. I worked as a maintenance mechanic in a power plant. I used to climb on overhead cranes all day. I used to climb the smokestack 280 feet straight up to change the light bulbs at almost 500 pounds. I just, I was still, I had a buddy tell me that I carried it well once. And that was my clue that I knew I was extremely heavy. I'm like, when your friends tell you that you carry it well, or I didn't realize that you was that big. You really carry it well. It's like, thanks, homie. That means that you didn't realize
Let me
that
get
I
this
was
gym
that big.
membership. Yeah, let me get this gym membership. Clearly, you just
Yeah.
called me a fat ass.
You know what's crazy, Herbie? I tried for the I was overweight for about 10 years. During that 10 years, I tried everything. I did everything that everybody saw on Dr. Oz, Garcina Cambogia, ketones. I did the hydroxycut. I did all the hydroxycut when they had the good stuff in them before they took it off the market, when the baseball players and the football players started dropping in the field and shit. I tried all these different things and nothing really stuck. And it's crazy. You mentioned all the turmoil that was going on in my life. I was in the middle of divorce. My stepdaughter got taken out of my life. I was 500 pounds. It was me and my boys. I didn't know how I was going to pay rent. I made a cry on my Facebook page in November of 2015 and just was like, hey, has anybody got a workout DVD that I can borrow? And it just so happened a girl, Sarah, that I worked with at the hospital, she had Sean T's T25 at home. And she's, you can borrow that. And I got it from her in November. And I'll never forget because January 1st is this magical number and day and this
Brand new
restart, this
me.
refresh. It's going to be a new you and you're going to change your whole life around. I put it on the table at the tail end of November and said, I'll start in January. I didn't make it to January. December 1st, 2015, I woke up in my CPAP machine with severe acid reflux. I had a court date that week. I didn't sleep, but I couldn't breathe. I physically couldn't breathe. And I remember grabbing the mask on my face and it was strapped around my head and everything. And I pulled it off. And when I pulled it off, I ripped the whole machine off the nightstand. And at the time, both my boys were in bed. They were sleeping to the side of me. I had this big king size bed. My side just concaved because I was so heavy at the time. And I ran to the bathroom. And I remember when I got to the bathroom of this small 2-bedroom apartment that we had, um, I'm in there and I'm leaning on the vanity and I can't breathe. My face is turning purple. I'm kneeling down in front of the toilet. I'm dry heaving because the acid is just burning my esophagus, man. It was completely closed. I can't get anything up or down at that point. I get back up and pull myself up on the vanity and I open up the medicine cabinet and I grabbed an entire sleeve of Rolaids. And I remember just cramming them in my mouth. I can't breathe. And now I'm putting antacids in my mouth to try, and it's chalky and dry. And I turned the water on the faucet and I ended up making this like antacid slurry in my mouth. And finally, I just remember pleading to God, man. This was like one of the first times that I was brought up having God in my life. My mom made sure to bring me to church on Sundays and all that. She gave me the choice when I was a teenager, but there were years where I had no relationship with him at that point. And I looked in the mirror and I couldn't breathe. And I said, God, please let me live. I'm going to change. Just let me breathe. I'm going to change. And man, I remember my lungs filled with air and I started to get the antacids down and I started breathing. It's like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, December 1st, 2015. And I'm like, oh, I'm just standing in the bathroom still trying to figure out, wrap my mind around life. I have a picture of myself from that morning. I ended up taking a picture of myself in the mirror and saying, I'm not going to look like this again after today. I walked out into the living room. I grabbed the DVDs. I put a DVD in. It's 4 a.m. And it was the most dreadful 25 minutes of my life, bro. Literally, it was the worst. I remember at one point, the woman, Tanya, and it's funny, I've met her at this point. We're friends. We work in the same network. She's in the video. She's in the insanity videos and stuff, and she's the modifier. But in the video, Sean says, she just had a baby. And if you can't do what we're doing, follow along with her. I couldn't do what Tanya was doing, bro. Tanya was moving way too fast for my fat ass. I could not breathe. And 5 minutes into it, I hated this woman, Tanya, because she's killing it, just had a baby. And I can't even, and I just kept telling myself, I swear, I talked to God more that morning and myself than ever before. And I just kept saying, okay, just stay moving. Just stay moving. If you can't do what they're doing, march in place. If you can't do as many push-ups as them, don't matter. Just stay moving, stay moving. I finished that 25 minutes and I thought to myself, it's so crazy. It was like I had all of the motivational stuff that we hear and we see everywhere. I didn't have that in my world yet, but it was like being force fed to me that day. I said out loud, I'm like, man, that was the hardest 25 minutes of my life. And literally, can't explain it. I don't know if it was my own conscious. I don't know if it was God talking to me. I don't know what it was, but I immediately recognized this and I repeated, no, it wasn't. I got to choose 25 minutes of hard. That hard was my choice. My entire life was hard. Sleep apnea was hard. Being overweight was hard. Being a single parent was hard. That 25 minutes was hard for 25 minutes and it was over. My life was hard 24 hours a day. And I was just like, I had that revelation in my head. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And I don't know if you ever heard the guru and the man, it's an old saying. I know Eric, the hip hop preacher, has talked about it before. Basically, a
Oh,
guy
yeah.
sees the
Yeah.
guru on the side of the road. He asks him, he goes, I want to be famous. I want to be rich. And guru says, meet me at the beach. They get to the beach. Says, come out into the water. The dude's, I'm not here to learn how to fish. I don't want to swim. Why are we out in the water? They get out to about shoulder deep. Guru grabs his head, dunks him underwater. The guy's fighting for his life. As soon as he comes up, he says, look, the minute that you fight as hard as you just fought to breathe for those things that you want to be rich or to be famous is when you'll have it. And I fought to breathe, Herbie. That realization came to me was in 2015, I fought to breathe. And like you said, I had so much stuff going on. Why not add change in my life at the same time? And that was the day that was literally the day I was still in court. I was still going to court. I was still doing all the things. And I just decided, you know what? Enough is enough. And it's crazy. Somebody asked me the other day. So I've been 6 years total, almost breached the 6 years. It'll be 6 years in a couple days here. sober. I've been sober for 6 years, and somebody asked me, well, why don't you drink? And it's funny, man. Another time that I can't explain, it was put in me. I was a single dad. I was changing my life. Things were going good. I got home from work. I was cooking dinner. The boys were playing and jumping on the couch. I had custody. I was still going through court a little bit. I was drinking a beer, the first beer of the night. It cracked. It was cold, bro. It was going down smooth. And I heard one of them say, ow, and he had fallen off the couch. And it got put into me. God forbid one of them gets hurt and you got to go to the emergency room. You walk up in the emergency room and you smell like a brewery. You're a single father with custody of children. They're going to take your kids away. I walked to the fridge. I poured all the beers out. I didn't even finish the one I was drinking, and I stopped drinking that day. And it was like, it wasn't even like I needed to make that choice. It was like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say congratulations on that, and very similar to you with myself, my turning moment, because in December is going to be 6 years. Pretty much the New Year's, December 31st, New Year's is like the last time I had a drink. And it wasn't until my daughter was born and I'm like holding her and I'm looking at her and I'm just like, man, the mindset that like very similar to you. I'm like, man, here I am drinking, but God forbid something happens and I show up into that emergency room or the cops have to come and I'm too intoxicated or not even too intoxicated, just enough where they like, oh, we can smell you. I don't want that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want that separation. And I was like, you know what? I want to be locked in when it comes to the relationship building with my daughter. I want to make sure
Yeah.
that even I don't enjoy changing diapers, that I'm there, I'm in it, even reading books, doing
100%.
whatever. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I just want to embrace fatherhood as that, as much as that. But then it was just like very similar to you of who am I without this alcohol? Let's have this conversation. Who are you? Like, you
Mhm.
don't need Hennessy. You don't need anything. You don't need the Coronas. You don't need none of that. Who are you without it? And just like everyone, like every superheroes, man, I don't know who I am, but let's find out. Let me dive
Mhm.
into this. Let me see who I am. My buddies, hey, let's go drink. Let's go do that. And I'm just like, no, I'm not on. I don't need the drink. Like I went to one of my buddies. She had a birthday party slash celebration. She got a promotion. We're all celebrating, and I'm like, I'm going in. I'm dancing. I'm having a good time. And everybody's like, man, you are the hypest one here, and you don't have any liquor in your system. I'm like, I'm high on life.
Why?
I
Yes.
think about the person that I used to be when I was drunk. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes, you're fun. You're doing all that. But then when I got home, I was just like, oh, angry,
Yep.
upset, mad, and whatever. Now I'm like, man, I'm enjoying life. I'm here. I am having a good time. I'm acknowledging that I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I love that. And I love the fact that what really made me had a good time is the support that I had at the bar. Oh, not the bar, it was the club. Nobody sat there and told me, hey, do you want to drink this? Do you want to try that? And
Yeah.
that made me have such a great time because it was like they really respect me, the fact that I've been so
Yeah.
there was no peer pressure until, hey, you want to try this? You want this? It was like, yo, hey, let's have a good time. And it's, oh, wait, hold on. You could, man, like, you're really like, you're the life of the party. Let's go. So it was like, yeah, I'm the life of the party because you guys respect me. You're not pressuring me and all that. Uh,
Yeah.
when, with your story and I, there's so many things I want to ask, and I'm like, I don't want to turn this into a 6 hour podcast.
Dude,
uh,
we can do a part 2, a 3, a 4.
yeah. So December 1st was the acknowledgement of I'm going to change. I'm gonna drop all this weight. Or not even all this weight. I wanna live. December 1st is
You
I
gotta
want
make
to
a
live.
change, yeah. Yeah.
And how long did it take you to lose the 500 pounds? Because I don't I because I'm asking this question because I don't want someone to sit there and say, "Oh, I overweight. I got like 60 pounds to lose." It's this guy lost 500 in a year or whatever, because obviously it
Yeah.
takes time. The amount of work that you put in,
Right.
it probably took, let's say, the 10,000 hours to lose this. So I just want to, so people can understand the time it took, the effort, and the fact that you
Yeah.
didn't say, you know what, yeah, I messed up. Let me go get this pill or let me go get this surgery and do all that. Because I know the conversations we have, you've been like, nah, dude, this is all natural. Like,
Yeah.
boy, losing this
I've, I've
this
fought.
weight.
I've, so I battled weight pretty much my whole life. I wasn't always heavy. There was 10 years of me being heavy. I was about 500 at my heaviest. Around the time of me doing the life change, I was not 500 pounds. I
Okay.
was probably just about 400 pounds. I was just under 400 pounds. I lost 140 pounds. It took me 140 pounds, took me just under 2 years to do. Between 2015 and my smallest in 2017. And I've put weight back on since then. I'm not 500 pounds. My weight fluctuates anywhere from 5 to 50 pounds. I tell people all the time there's that bulk season, but I'm so much healthier now than I was back then. Um, but it takes time. And here's the thing, we're not defined in what we do some of the time. People will do these crash diet. And I'm telling you because I've done everything. People do crash diets. They'll do these strict diets. They'll do this. I'm just going to do this and I'm going to follow it hardcore. And it never works that way. And most people are all or nothing people. And what I mean by that is I'm that person. And most people would be doing really well. And then at work, they had donuts and they caved, right? And they had a donut at work that morning. And then at lunch, freaking Becky in accounting went to Chipotle and you decided to tag along and you had Chipotle too. And then you got home and you had your workout to do and you were like, you know what? I feel sluggish because of the donut and the Chipotle. And you know what? I'm just going to order out. You ordered out some pizza that night and you're like, screw it. I already ruined my meal plan for the day. So it's all or nothing. And all or nothing leads to really falling off the deep end. I found that you're going to have these cravings. You're going to have these
Oh
things
yeah.
that there are replacements and alternatives to feed a craving, but feed it. If you're craving it, you're craving it for a reason, feed it. An example, I love Reese's peanut butter cups, my dude. They're my downfall. It's my kryptonite. I can't walk by a Reese's without having my mouth water.
Agreed.
What I found though is I can get Quaker oatmeal rice cakes, the apple cinnamon ones. Bro, this is like my go-to. And I put a little bit of peanut butter on and a couple chocolate chips, dark chocolate chips. Bro, that is so satisfying and fulfilling that I don't need the Reese. I mean, I'll still eat the Reese, don't get me wrong, but it's just a different choice.
Yeah.
We all choose something to some degree. We choose our determination to stick with something or we choose our excuses as to why we can't. We're always choosing something. That's the craziest part is I tell people, I'm like, anybody can do what I do. And they're like, yeah, but you have XYZ. No, listen, we have different capacities, we have different capabilities, we have different environments, but we all have the same availability of choice. It's a matter of what we're choosing at that point. So if your journey might look a little bit different, but you got the choice. You can choose.
Great stuff. After this, you do this 180. You choose to live your life a different way, a different style. And that led to you becoming this speaker. That led to you becoming this coach. When did you was like, man, I can be a coach? Was there any aha moment, any epiphany that happened? Or did
Dude,
someone reach out to you?
it's the funniest thing. I got involved with network marketing not unknowingly. I knew, right? But 2015, I'm changing my life. I have no money. I don't have a dime. I don't have a pot to piss in. I start working out December. I'm not really connected to anything. I'm not affiliated with anything. I have no subscriptions. I'm working out off of DVDs. One of my sister's ex coworkers, she was a friend of the family. She watched me on social media and what I was doing on social media. it was for me more than it was for anything else. I was just being accountable publicly. And I was publicly being accountable and being like, this is day what of me changing things in my life. And everybody that followed me and still follows me, they knew what I was going through. They knew I was going through divorce. They knew about the domestic because I was open about it and I was sharing about it even back then. My sister bought me some supplements from the Beachbody company, and she bought them for me for Christmas vicariously through our friend who was a partner with the business, who was already in network marketing. And that next month, I swear by the stuff, not just because I work with them. For 30 days, I drank the most nutritious thing that I had put in my body in years. It was basically my multivitamin and my breakfast every day. And I was broke. And a lot of times people say they don't have the money or they can't afford to make changes in their life, which is bullshit. It's a complete bullshit excuse that we use to save ourselves from that fear of failure that we have. So we look for the excuses, time, money. They're all the normal ones, right? I was drinking energy drinks, Herbie, at 4 a day, bro. And when I stopped and thought about this, it really like one, it crushed my pride and my ego. Two, I had no reason not to do what I ended up doing at this point. So I drank about 4 energy drinks a day. They were monsters at the time. You could get them in a gas station, 2 for $4. That's $8 a day. We're talking $240 a month. $240 a month when I didn't have money to feed my kids. And this realization came up, and I was just like, wow. I think about people that smoke cigarettes or chew tobacco and the added cost, because I was a former smoker too. I had quit years ago, but all that money that we spend on just shit when we could afford to invest it back into our health, our children, our house, our car. So $240 a month. I ended up taking my credit card that had exactly $145 on it left as an emergency. That was like my Hail Mary if I didn't have food for my kids. I had this credit card that was just about maxed out. And I went on their website and I signed up to be an affiliate so that I could get the discount on the supplements because I had used it for a month. That month was like one of my biggest weight loss months ever. It helped with my appetite. It helped to make sure I fueled my body. And I swore by it. I was like, you know what? I'm sold. How am I going to do this? And the minute that I signed up, I regretted it because now I had no money. I had no emergency stash to feed my kids or nothing. And I had people reach out to me because, of course, I mentioned it on my social media. I was like, can't believe I just did this, but this is what I'm doing now. If you feel inclined to do this with me, I'll support you while you support me. And it's crazy because we've all been cold messaged and cold called by friends that we've had in high school trying to sell us Herbalife or Advocare or Pampered
The
Chef. And
first thing that came to my life,
bro, bro,
Herbalife.
and I'm telling you, we've all been there, right? I'm different and I've been different with it. And that's why I confidently say I've been extremely successful with helping people with it is because rather than me trying to sell people something, I just ask people to support me and allow me to support them and share with them some of the different things that I think might help them. It's not a transactional relationship with us. I work with them. I talk to them. We do like personal
It's
calls
a
and stuff.
community. You're building a
Exactly.
community.
And it's huge. And I built this over the last 7 years. And what was crazy about it was as I did that, people were coming to me. In the month of February in 2016, I generated enough passive income through compensation and through the plan. I was able to feed my kids. I kept the lights on. I was able to make my car payment. And then I was like, wait a minute. Everything that I knew about network marketing and everything that I made fun of for almost my entire life, pyramid schemes and all that shit was out the window. It was out the window. And I was like, wait a minute, maybe there is something to this. And it's not every compensation plan, it's not every company. It's whatever aligns with your purpose and whatever aligns with solving a problem in your own life that will solve a problem in other people's lives. And I've developed a passion now to helping other people that are in network marketing. It's really helped me be able to branch out. And like I said, whatever they're doing, whatever affiliation that they have, it's all relevant, right? It's a matter of finding a need and filling the need. And there are people that need what people are offering. It's just a matter of finding the right people.
I love it, man. And I can imagine like, you doing the network marketing, you coaching, having like a support system, a community that gets you. Speak your language. Look, man, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. Oh, okay. I don't do this too. I don't do that. I'm holding you
Hmm.
accountable. You're saying you're going to go to the gym 3 days a week. I'm holding you accountable. You said that you're going to take these supplements. We're doing this. I don't want to say diet. We're doing this lifestyle together. Because when you think of, yeah,
Meal plan.
yeah, yo, we're
You
doing this
plan.
together. Yeah, we're planning everything together. We're planning so obviously being human, we're creatures of habit. You
Mhm.
get used to your routine. So when you have people that get you, you don't have to sit there and explain to them what you're doing. When you meet somebody new and they're like, "Oh, wait, that's weird." Okay, you know what? You're not for me. Let's keep it pushing. Like, and
Yeah.
it is perfectly fine. With that, what you doing and building a tribe and doing coaching as well, I can imagine people hearing your name buzzing that now leads to you speaking. And
Hmm.
which is one of the things that I do, which I love doing. It's speaking and very similar to you, coaching people up, running support groups, doing
Yeah.
like that. Um, I can imagine for you, speaking is something that's satisfying to you as a person because you like to help others. You like to say, look at my story. And, we
Hmm.
talk about the mindset, we talk about the shift. And when I go to conferences, even when I'm speaking or even if I'm not speaking, I love to sit down and hear people's stories because it gives you that perspective of
Yeah.
if that one person can change their life, they went through hell. They acknowledged the hell that they went through. Why can't I do that? You know what I mean? I don't necessarily have to be a
Absolutely.
speaker. I can just take what you said. Man, I really resonate. Yeah, you know what? I was sleeping on that couch. Yes, I had $5 in
Hmm.
my name, and the rent was due. You know what I mean? Trying to figure
Hmm.
it out, and it just shows the mindset that you have. If you can look like I don't have anything, that can really, I don't stunt your growth a lot, to really stunt your growth as a person. And for you to sit there and say, you know what? Yeah, I'm speaking, I'm doing that, but also the community that I have, the support. Because even
Yeah.
for a speaker or a coach, you still need that regardless. You need that inner
100%.
circle to hold you accountable. Hey, you doing all right? To check in on you and all that. So I applaud you for everything that you shared, everything that you went through. And yeah, for the events that you do, I enjoy them. I watch you speak. I don't want to say all the time, but I watch you speak enough. And I can confidently say you're crushing it, man. So with
Appreciate
that,
it.
you are, man. I call it how I see it. With that being said, let people know where they can find you at.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram as the official Craig Daigle. I had to throw the official on there so nobody kept replicating me anymore, but they're still out there every now and then. And I'm on unfilteredlifecoach.com. And you can find me as the Unfiltered Life Coach on Facebook or just straight up Craig Daigle. If you Google me, you'll find me. You'll see transformations that have been publicly posted by Beachbody, formerly Beachbody. It's now Body. Yeah, I want to be everywhere, man. My goal, Herbie, and I say this wholeheartedly all the time, is to not make $1 million. My goal is to touch 1 million lives. And I know that I'm creeping, I'm getting close. The largest event that I spoke at was 40,000 people. And I know that we moved some hearts and minds that night. And I still constantly do that on a daily basis, whether it's two people in a room or two people on a call or one person or it's 1,000 people in a room. It doesn't matter. They're going to get the same portion of me that everybody else gets, raw, honest, and unfiltered, brother.
I love it. That being said, see you next time. Peace.